first, can you start by saying and spelling your first and last name for me?
Absolutely. My name is Antwan Wilson, Antwan Wilson.
Perfect. All right, so first question, tell us why Lincoln Public Schools? Why are you interested in this job?
Well, I'm interested in Lincoln Public Schools because I believe in Lincoln Public Schools. I'm from Lincoln. I graduated from Lincoln High School and graduated from Nebraska Wesleyan, so I'm very familiar with the community. I moved back to the community so that my children could have access to Lincoln Public Schools and have opportunities to pursue the type of education I got, that I received, and to be educated by people who I knew would invest in them and care about them, but also to be in an environment that would talk about diversity and the importance of it. In terms of why I believe I'd be effective in terms of Lincoln Public Schools superintendent is because I'm interested in making sure that students get and receive the same opportunity I received. And that is to be in a school where they get a great education. They're taught by adults who are supported, who the community will invest in and say that all students deserve access to a great education, and then taught by and led by leaders who are supported by the district as well. I am focused on every student being successful. Lincoln Public Schools has an initiative or a slogan that says all means all. I like to say we get to all means all by prioritizing each and every student. And as a superintendent, that's what people will experience from me. Every student matters. There are no students that we can afford to just dismiss.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, you're from Lincoln, but kind of tell me about your experience so far, through this process, through Lincoln, everything like that.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think that Lincoln is prioritizing the collaborative effort to engage parents and students and school leaders, and as well as obviously the responsibility of the school board and the various staff throughout the system in some meaningful way is to determining who should be the superintendent, but also engaging business community partners. And I think that's an important aspect because as a superintendent, you have to really come in and navigate working with everyone in a productive, collaborative way. And you become a centerpiece for what the vision of the school district is and how you bring people together to promote the collective interests of all students. And so what I love about Lincoln is that that's what I knew I'd find here. So whether it would be me or someone else in terms of being the superintendent, that type of work is going to be extremely important. Now, why it should be me is because, I'm going to not only just invest in that and that type of thing in terms of supporting it, but what we're going to do is look at ways that we can enhance it. Ways that we can help families or students or teachers or staff or whatever stakeholders feel like they're a part of determining what the next phase of progress here is for Lincoln and what the next strategic plan should hold. And so I'm going to prioritize that work. I'm going to be extremely responsive to the spaces where people are at and uplifting all students and staff as well, whether they are initially in agreement with me or not. And people are going to experience that because that's just what I believe it takes in order to be successful.
I'll open it up to everyone else now.
Anthony D'Agostino, Channel 8 News. This is a countrywide issue. Staffing, teachers are leaving schools at an alarming rate, and I'm sure Lincoln is no different. So how will you try to get more teachers at LPS and make sure the good ones stick around?
Yeah, well, I think that first and foremost, I want people to know I'm an educator, and that has never left me. I understand how hard the job is, and that was before the pandemic. Having the pandemic and trying to navigate the shifts in the job responsibilities, trying to navigate for many teachers what it looks like to teach students in class or maybe online or catch students up who've missed school, and also reacclimate students to a classroom culture, that is hard. So although I am an educator, I recognize, and as hard as it has been, I recognize that it's harder now. And that's what teachers will experience from me is just, first of all, the understanding and appreciation. So we want to be in spaces where we can try to figure out productive ways to make the job easier. It's always going to be hard. Okay, because we have a responsibility as educators to try to prepare young people for the futures that they imagine for themselves, and it's hard for them to imagine if they've not had a lot of experiences. In terms of what we'll do is we have to begin to make sure that we're building, first of all, a strategic plan where teachers see themselves as a part of the process to create. And then also that they see that the success of teachers, as well as the other individuals who make the teachers' lives palatable and comfortable in schools, that we're prioritizing that. And so what I said to the other individuals through the process is that when teachers are saying that they're tired, we should believe them, okay, because they are. Now, I'm in school, so I understand why. And then what we have to do is say, okay, what do we do with that? And how do we create productive ways and thoughtful ways to make the job more palatable? And then finally, I'm going to uplift and try to create pathways for people to come into the classroom. And so we have to grow our own teachers here. We have students who are going to be coming through the system. They are products of Lincoln Public Schools. We want to create pipelines, intentional pipelines, where obviously Lincoln Public Schools prioritizes trying to hire students who graduate from Lincoln Public Schools. But we need to have an intentional effort to make sure that people understand what it's like to be a teacher. So as we create these and expand upon environments that make that an attractive place to be, we want our students to be in a position, if they're interested in giving back, to be at the front of the line in terms of coming back. And then those people who are professionals, whether they be paraprofessionals or they chose other careers, we want to be partnered with the state to make as clear transitions back into or into the classroom for those individuals as possible, so that they recognize that being able to get back to Lincoln Public Schools is something that we value, even if their initial career option wasn't teaching. And then the way you prioritize teachers in terms of, you said the best teachers and how do you encourage them to stay, they need to understand that you see them as the best teachers. They need to understand that you value their expertise, and they need to understand that the things that they are uplifting as a part of the strategy to improve, that those things are held centrally as valuable and important, and that they have the voice of the superintendent as well as the district leadership in helping to steer the ship as to which way we're going. Obviously, we, as a superintendent, you got to provide a North Star. But you can't get to where you're trying to go unless you have all of the component parts, and teachers are just a significant part of a success of a school district rowing in the same direction. And so that would be my effort, and I hope I get an opportunity to do it.
Bria Battle, 1011 now. So as a student-focused leader, talk about your leadership qualities, or what is one thing about your leadership qualities you want staff, the parents, and community to know?
What I would say is this: if you ask, you're going to hold me to one thing, I'm a servant leader. So I understand that my success comes through helping the people that I work with achieve success. And it's success certainly in the professional spaces, but it's also trying to think through what their long-term, short-term interests are and how we're investing in helping them achieve that as well. This is what I know. If you like what you're doing and you feel seen and supported in the efforts that you are engaged in to get there, meaning you feel like the people you work with are invested in helping you reach those goals, and you feel like you're part of a collective effort, you tend to stay longer. You tend to give more. You tend to be more engaged. And that's what I think people will experience, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent.
Zach Hammond from the Journal Star. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
When the list of finalists were released last week, some raised concerns about your tenure in D.C. How would you address those concerns or alleviate those concerns?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say this. I'm very proud, and I put on my resume, I was a chancellor in D.C. I enjoyed my time there. During my time there, let's see here, we increased student achievement, we addressed the stubborn achievement gap, and that was something that the previous leadership had said that was their biggest regret, not being able to move it, and we did move it, and it was very intentional around uplifting professional development and really trying to uplift social emotional learning and trying to create a collaborative culture. In terms of the me not being there, what I will just say, suffice is to say, is this. In terms of prioritizing and trying to do what I needed to do to prioritize my family, I went to the people that I was responsible to meet with and shared what was going on and made a decision that we needed to move our daughter from the school for her health. When that happened, I was careful not to say anything disparaging about any school or any leader. I took a lot of negative heat around that for not saying that, because that allowed narratives that to be spread that were just not true. I don't hold resentment around that, because I also recognize that as a parent moving into DCPS, I should have on the front end made sure, slowed down. We went through the enrollment process, all of that. It was through the deputy mayor's office. That's who runs enrollment. You see, that was my boss and the mayor. And I did that the first time, I did that the second time. But what I did not do is I did not take the time to slow down and make sure my family was there, make sure my wife helped me find a house, and all of those things to make sure that they were good before I started in DC. And so when a situation came where my daughter was not good, and I went and sought help, I thought that would be prioritized, and the advice that I was receiving, I just followed that. And normally what I do is I'd ask a lot more questions of a lot more people, and so you learn from that. But my apology around that was, I don't like attention to be diverted away from what the interests are. And so that happened, and I feel really bad about that, but I hold my head up high knowing that I didn't hide anything. And I certainly made no requests around schools. I was always clear that we were willing to put our daughter in a private school or send her back to live with our family members, but staying in that situation was a matter of our daughter's health, emotional well-being, and I think that in a society that says we uplift social well-being and psychological well-being and want to prevent depression, so she was headed, and we needed to address it. And we did, and I tried to do that in a collaborative way with my bosses, and it didn't work in terms of what I did. What I can tell people, and I'll say this later today, people need to decide, ultimately, am I the person who year after year did things the right way, who prioritized others over me, who built collaborative relationships, who centered students in the middle of every decision, who is a rule follower, and as we've heard often shared, that when we made trouble, it was good trouble for the right reasons. Whether I'm that person or I'm the person who decided to throw it all away by engaging in some type of conspiracy with someone I just met in order to benefit my daughter, and when I do so, not make any recommendations or make any requests about what needs to be, what we're expecting. And their investigations proved that I did not do that. And that's what I'd say to folks. I understand people having pause around that, but ultimately I am an open book, and I would be proud to be the superintendent of Lincoln Public Schools. And I think that they would see that I would honor that privilege with modeling the type of integrity that I try to, well, I want to be a part of helping students see that it's important to see from their leaders.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. And that is all the time we have.